Q&A at the end.
All right, that sounds great. And did you want me to? Do you want me to? Who? Yeah, who do you want to like
I've got I've
manage
got
that?
I've got the intros covered if you'd like, Ashley. I've got a slide on all the speakers, so I can take that.
You're the best. All right. In that case, I'm just going to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Babak. I am thrilled that you're here to tell your story, and I know that the folks who are listening in are eager to learn. So with that, I hand the microphone over to you, Dave. Take it.
All right, thanks, Ashley. Hey, first of all, I'm speaking for myself. I'd much rather be in St. Pete right now. I think you saw in the chat window there, we got 3 inches of snow last night here in Denver, which is really messing up my early season golf game. So I've got an Arizona trip planned with a bunch of rounds of golf and a lot of gambling, and I'm not getting my golf in. So I'm a little irked, but anyway, um, I'd much rather be in St. Pete, and it's great to see that you got a Fort Lauderdale thing coming. So hopefully we'll be able to get down there. So that's great. Looking forward to seeing everyone in person as opposed to this Hollywood Squares Brady Bunch thing that we've all been doing the past year of our lives, right? So anyway, you see, don't we actually changed the title. This one's a little, I think, snappier. We didn't get around to it quite in time to get it on the program, but the original title is using the digital twin of the organization to understand and manage the impact of change in an organization. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So kind of who called this meeting? I like to put that up there just to make sure people are paying attention. So, a few things obviously have happened in the past year, and thumbing through stuff and LinkedIn and kind of stumbled on this McKinsey article that I thought was really interesting. I mean, some of it might already be outdated. It was from June of last year. But there were 5 themes that around utilities and what they need to do to navigate the coming months and years. So that first one on the list there is, obviously demand has taken a hit. The profiles have changed, residential up, business down, but overall down and already working its way back up. But obviously that's changed. Credit risk has increased, right? People are having difficulty paying their bills, disruption in operations. So you guys know COVID safety protocols. Maybe some of your contractors have gone under, they didn't survive. So you got to figure out ways to go without contractors or help them get back on their feet. And then things that were already happening, reshaping of the industry like renewables and new downstream activities, getting rid of assets to free up liquidity, all that stuff is accelerating. And operating models are obviously changing. Work from home is huge, right? And collaboration tools and change. It all requires your professional expertise. So that's a really good thing. And I'd encourage you guys, we'll be sharing this, but I got the link to the McKinsey article. It's really good. So where do we start if we've got, just looking at those themes, if you're looking at a big transformation project? Oops, forgot to change the slide. There we go. So a lot of questions, right? So which projects are going to give me the biggest return on my limited budget? Which ones are a waste of time, money, or resources? How can I demonstrate the value of my project to my decision makers? Are vendors delivering the value that they said they would? And then also a big one is, what's the cost of doing nothing? So today what we're going to talk about is introducing a value-driven decision support solution based on this digital twin concept that will help answer all of these questions, help you trudge through the internal politics, the IT buzzwords, the latest technologies, and actually make value-based decisions on where to start and how to measure and realize the benefits of a big transformation project. So to do that, I've got a great lineup here, a trio of speakers. I guess I'll just start with me. I'm Dave. I think I've been to the last few shows, so we some of you have seen a little bit of this content before. I'm the CEO of MagikMinds. I've been in the utility and telco industries for 25 plus years, primarily in planning and implementing GIS and mobile solutions. We work for companies like Duke and Exelon, Entergy, and Cox. And when I'm not working, I'm either on the golf course or driving my kids somewhere. And I'm here in usually sunny. It's actually sunny today, Denver, Colorado. And my other Colorado cohort today is Jennifer Petit. She's from WOW, and WOW is the sixth largest internet phone cable operator in the U.S. Jennifer's been there for 7 years, and they have her float around to different leadership roles, starting new practice areas in GIS, business analysis, and now she's focusing on customer retention. She's also, well, she's a native of Buena Vista. She might have a little bit more snow than I do today. And she's going to talk about how they've applied this digital twin concept at WOW to improve how they sell, deploy, and support hosted voice over IP. And then we have Babak Zahraie, and he's from Statistics New Zealand. So we've got a couple guys here. Neil's also in New Zealand, and they're up super early today. I forget what Neil called it, sparrow something. I forget, but he'll say it when I introduce him. But anyway, Babak's has 7+ years as an analyst, business analyst, product owner in a number of different industries, including insurance, higher education, logistics, and now New Zealand about 10 years ago for his PhD, and hasn't left. So I hope he finishes PhD, but he's a doctor. We should call him doctor. And he's on the South Island in Christchurch. And he's going to talk about how Stats New Zealand has used the same concept to optimize the processes around mobilizing temporary field workers. And is Neil Calvert. He's the CEO and inventor of LINQ. He's the brains behind everything we're talking about today. Also has a background in GIS, a self-proclaimed data geek, I'll say enthusiast. I think it'll come out in his presentation, even though it's 5 a.m. for him. It might take a few minutes, but I'm pretty sure he's fully caffeinated now. So, and he's in Wellington on the North Island, so a little bit north of Babak. So I'm going to hand it off to Neil. Take it away, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Dave. I described it as sparrow fart o'clock, just so that we get that bit over and done with. Yeah, slightly based for 5 a.m., but there we go. I too would love to be in St. Pete's as opposed to 5 a.m. in Wellington, New Zealand at the beginning of winter. I was there, it was a year ago. It was actually my last international travel pre-COVID arriving in the world. So I have fond memories of the sun set and drinks on the beach. And hopefully, maybe next year we'll be able to be back there. But no, thanks, Dave, for the intro. I've got the task of kind of, I guess, introducing the concepts around digital twin and giving you a quick demo so that Babak and Jennifer can kind of crack on into sharing some of the outputs from the work that they've done applying the platform. So I'm going to jump straight in. I will be going reasonably quickly, but we are providing the presentation for you. So if you've got questions afterwards, then Dave's your man. So what do we do with LINQ? We're all about enabling value-driven decision support. So there's a couple of things in that, really. My belief is that organizations should be focused on how they create value, whether that's value for the customer, for their staff, for shareholders. It doesn't matter. If we focus on the creation of value, we naturally identify things that are priority for our business, and we're able to account for the changing environment around us, and never has that been more pertinent than today with COVID. So we have a process that we help people follow through the platform. Starts with thinking about where you are today, your current state, gaining insights from that new knowledge, then modeling future states within the platform. So where you would like to be in order to, I guess, create change against the challenges that you might have found in your current state. Through that, understand the impact that that change will have on the organization prior to doing any of the work, which enables the decision to be made generating value. So we've got this structure that we follow. As you're here because we talked about the digital twin of the organization. So this is really the mechanics behind the platform, where we're able to create models that represent how the organization operates. So we've got a language that we use, a very structured language that looks at the content that people require in order to do their work, the work that gets done, the people involved in the processes, and the systems that are used by people as tools, but also that hold the content. And with that very structured language, we create these models very, very quickly. And being able to compare current and future state is the thing that allows you to understand impact. So that's the digital twin bit, and all will become clear, hopefully, as we do the demo. Why relevant? Well, my background in GIS was all about implementation of systems with a high focus on the technology, but none of it worked without understanding the data and information that enables that platform to actually deliver value. And for me, right there is the crux of, if you're going to introduce something new into the organization, best you understand the scope of the implementation, but also the impact, taking a systems thinking view through the business. And unfortunately, I believe we still fail to do that well. And the result is most transformation change programs fail. These are some stats from EY. They were actually used last year. I did some research this year for this presentation, and nothing's changed. Here we are 12 months on. Only 30% of transformation programs succeed, 70% fail. For me, that's in the realm of chance. And, hand on heart, who's happy spending internal cash that's a sunk cost into the organization on the basis that you might, if you're lucky, achieve the thing that you were looking to impact through the business. So we should be changing this. We should be finding new ways of giving ourselves a better chance. In fact, we should be finding ways of having some significant assurance that the investment that we're going to make inside the organization is going to achieve the outcome that we expect. We are going to deliver that value. That we're focused on the purpose for which we are performing the change. We're enabling our business to adapt and be nimble, that we are accounting for the content that effectively drives our whole business, and that we are managing our user experiences, our customer experiences, and our employee experiences. And if we can reshape the way that we do that, I believe this 30% success figure will completely swing around. But it requires something new to happen. Set against all of this, of course, Dave touched on it, the challenges within the industry, utility specifically, are immense and are only growing. Last year, we managed to add COVID-19 to another environmental factor that was impacting not only the way that we operate as an industry, but the consumer side of things. So all of these environmental factors are just forcing us to continue to think about how we as an industry evolve in order to meet the demand, not only from a consumption perspective, but the fact that people are changing the way that they live, and their expectations around the consumption of power associated with that are also changing. And this is a complex environment, and I believe we need to think a little bit differently about how we evolve our businesses in order to meet these expectations. Another plug for McKinsey. No, we're not sponsored by them, but they produce some pretty awesome content. Earlier this year, they came up with a new model. They called it new for how utilities should return to the next normal. Probably hate the term new normal. It was bandied about pretty quickly once we were all confined to home in lockdowns. But this article I thought was actually quite relevant because it just puts 5-stage process into thinking about effectively change. And I actually think you could remove COVID-19 from this conversation and actually apply this process to any change or transformation inside the organization. And you can see these 5 stages here: resolve, resilience, return, reimagine, reform. I've looked at this and said, hang on, that's pretty much the same process that we want organizations to take using LINQ. So I'm going to use these 5 stages in order to introduce to you the concepts around the platform. So stage 1, resolve. This is really about determining what's going on and understanding really the current state. And this is really where the digital twin comes into its own. It's that relationship between people, actions, systems, and information. So who's doing what work? How are they doing that? So what tools are they using? And what's the content that enables them to do their work and is created by the result of doing the work? If we can build representations of our business very quickly using this structure, we are able to understand the impact of the way that we work today. And that gives us insight to think about the change. So the first stage within LINQ is modeling the current state. And I will show you an example of a current state. Within the platform, we have built a whole bunch of insights which are delivered to you once you have started to build the model. And really, this is about understanding the value that's created inside the organization, how that is done, and then being able to determine where you might want to do something about that. Protect value, increase the value, remove activities which have no value. There is still an awful lot of that goes on. Our businesses just evolve naturally, and we forget sometimes to stop and take a look around and realize actually that thing isn't needed anymore, but Fred still sits in the corner doing it, for 3 hours a day, every day. So how do we take advantage of now knowing what we're doing and how we're doing it to think about the business change? Those insights really do provide us the opportunity to think about scenarios of change and plan our response in terms of change and transformation inside the organization. So the platform pivots around those 4 entities: information, action, system, people, and provides us perspectives that we can use in order to start to build a narrative around this is the opportunity for this change. So we are inherently building resilience in the organization. And one of the biggest things that came out of COVID was business resilience in terms of suddenly everyone working from home. Do they still have access to the platforms that they need to access and the data that they need to do their work? And if they don't, we very quickly reacted to the situation that we found. And now there's an opportunity to harden up some of those processes and access to applications. And that's actually achieved by really thinking about the opportunity moving forwards. As part of resilience as well, we want to build the business case to support the conversation about change. So the platform allows us to build a current state and the future state. So how might we work having accounted for the challenge? And we can present this to business users and business owners, budget holders, to help them understand the opportunity that exists inside the organization for change. So we can look at the people and how they're impacted, the systems and how they're impacted. So we end up having good technology conversations, good HR conversations. But more importantly, we're building the metrics for success based on achieving a new way of operating in the organization. And the platform is supporting this conversation with the evidence that's been captured from our current and our future states. And this then becomes an iterative process. So the reform and reimagine stages that McKinsey talk about are how things like compliance and environmental impacts, how they drive change. These are just ongoing conversations that you can have inside the business. And this reimagination is, well, let's take the opportunity to think about all the stuff that's out there, whether it's technology, whether it's new skills that are coming into the organization based on new training programs, and how can we use them to influence the way the organization changes over time. So the platform ends up supporting this ongoing transformation effort. I like to think of it becoming the transformation system of record, as these assets are built inside the organization where you can reuse that content, keep it up to date, continue the conversation, continue communicating effectively through the organization. And Babak in particular is going to talk about the creation of standardized language that everybody has access to through the organization to help accelerate change. Please don't get hung up on this slide. It's included because we wanted to show you the content. But if we think about the project phase for change, we've just come up with an idea of how digital twin can impact the phases of project. So this is just something for you to take away and have a look at. But these are common challenges that organizations want to impact through change, and we've just associated the opportunity to follow this process and impact through that project phase. From the perspective of just usage, our usage of the platform is growing globally. The utility sector for us in the US, facilitated through Dave and MagikMinds, is growing. We've got some pretty big organizations, and you're going to hear from Jennifer about the way that LINQ has helped that organization. So we'd love to have an opportunity to share more with you about the way that the platform can help. And so, with all of that, I'm going to jump very quickly into a demo, as long as I can get the platform to let me do this, just to give you a bit more insight about what it looks like and just some of the opportunities that exist. So I'm going to see if I can do a desktop share, and we'll see if this works. So can someone give me a thumbs up in the panel? Yeah, excellent. Okay, cool. So LINQ is a modeling platform to start with. It's all online, so this is a browser-based application just hosted in the cloud, makes it super fast to access. Modeling is built as we have conversations inside the organization, so it's been designed to be really quick in terms of how do we listen to the conversation that's going on, and using the structure that we've created in LINQ, build these representations of the business. So actions create information, information enables the next action, and so on. Who are the people involved in the process? So these are people performing work, and what tools do they use in order to do that work? And also how systems provide information, whether that's a piece of paper or a CRM, and maybe systems automate actions as well. So this is the sum of the LINQ language, and all we need to do as the conversation is taking place is have an opportunity to document this. The difference between LINQ and other modeling environments is this inclusion of information specifically within the model. My belief is that this content and how it's provided, the format it's in, whether we believe it and trust it, if it's right for the work that we're doing, directly influences the work we do and how we do it, plus the tools that we have access to. So if we can understand what this is and how we create this content that's then needed to enable the next action, we have an opportunity to think about what we do and how we do it, and then maybe create some change inside the organization, which not only helps us do this faster or more cheaply, but has a direct impact on the people doing the work, but also how it's consumed by our customers. So that's the basic physics, I guess, behind the platform. And what happens when we create these models is we are able to describe very quickly how an organization operates. So this is a health and safety scenario where an organization is creating or logging incidents. So this is something that happens inside most organizations, certainly within the utility sector. We've done some work with telcos locally in New Zealand, and one of the critical things they have to manage is staff going on site, visiting locations where there are incidents, being able to record those and then manage them, and then put mitigation in place for risks that occur. So this is this type of process. You can see here we've got a staff member submitting an incident by paper. They're logging their name, the details of the incident, and the location. An incident is created, so we have an incident report form. It's then reviewed, and here we've got some criteria that we're assessing against, and inside this box we get to see what's the detail around how that process works. So it's done via email. There's an action plan that's created as a PDF. More information might be required. So this is the evidence process where we go and have a conversation with other people and we get witness statements and so on. You can see Word is the system here where we're writing corrective actions. We're creating some advice around that. We're confirming that the incident's been resolved, again, using email. And the outputs that are created is an action plan, confirmation of the action being complete. It's stored in a shared drive somewhere. there's an incident report, there's an outcome email. You can see here we've got some dollar figures. This is the cost of creating these assets for a single incident. So we have modeled this against one incident being logged, and we followed this process through the organization, how it manages it today. The other thing we do in the platform is we value these information outputs. So there's a growing concept called infonomics. This is the monetization, measurement, and management of information, and it allows us to apply some principles which come up with a value score for information based on the quality, the accessibility, the believability, how it can be used in real time for decision making, etc. We have a very simple way of taking that discussion and applying it into the platform. That's this number on the right hand side on a score out of 10. So you can see these assets have been actually categorized as being relatively low value. But this helps us understand ultimately what can we do inside the business to increase the value. What the platform does as we build these models is it's creating these insights for us where we can immediately understand the total cost of a single transaction for recording an incident. So nearly $800, and it takes 38 hours. There's no automation. We get to see cost versus value of the actions that are taking place. So these bubbles represent each of these boxes. And here we can see this is our high cost, relatively low value aspect of the process. It costs $613 to transact the incident through this part of the business. And we can find it, and it'll be no surprise that it's this whole process around witness statements. We can look at the technical DNA of the organization. So these are systems based on their value in our ability to deliver our business outcomes. So here we get to see scanner, paper, PDF, then email and Word. You can see this is a very non-structured set of content, highly manual way of operating. You can see here we've got all the systems used by people. There's no automation. And we can understand the impact any of these systems have on our ability to achieve our business goals. So if we take email as a system, we can see that 70% plus of the content that we rely on to deliver our business outcomes flows through this system. So we begin to assess the impact that it can have on the organization, and ultimately we can see the cost of creating the assets that we rely on to deliver the outcome that we're looking for, in this case, the resolution of health and safety incidents. So this model took less than an hour to build. It was a conversation inside the organization with the people who are involved, the people who manage the process, and the staff who undertake the process. So you can see very quickly we end up creating content that allows us to have that discussion about what's the opportunity here. And that opportunity is expressed through a future state. So this is assuming we are implementing a system called Assura, which is a health and safety management platform. And in this case, we have modeled what happens if that platform was running. So we run through exactly the same process. We are still meeting our outcomes, which is we want to manage health and safety. But this time we are removing the manual processes because we have implemented the system. So we get to see things where the system can automate the assignment of a new incident to a manager. So this is capability that we know the system has. So we model it to say, well, in this case, there is no longer a requirement to email the incident to a manager. The system it's been recorded in notifies them automatically, and so on. So this process now assumes this system is running through the knowledge that we have about the platform or engaging with the vendor. We're able to understand how the system works, and we can start to make some assumptions about how long it will take people to interact with the system in order to achieve the outcomes that they are looking for. So in this case, once we model that platform, this process with the platform, again, we get to see the total cost of managing a single incident again. So we're comparing like for like, $153, taking less than 3 hours of time, and we've introduced a level of automation into the platform. We can see how the technical implementation has removed systems. So we went from 7 or 8 systems to a single system, which is Assura, managing this entire process. And we can see the cost of creating our assets and how they've all reduced. So we're now able to generate a business case. So our compare function takes the current state and the future state that we've modeled and helps us understand the impact that this has to the business. So we could save $644 per incident management by having this implementation in place. So it drops from $797 per incident to $153, and it takes 35 hours less time. So nearly an entire working week less to transact through this process. If we're thinking about cycle time and how quickly we can affect an outcome, this is a significant number. But more than that, we get to see the systems that are impacted. So these are 6 systems we're removing, the new system that we need, and we get to see the impact on people. So there are people who where work is going to change for them. So we're able to identify that, so we can have those conversations inside the organization about the change of work. More importantly, it's about maybe taking things away from people and enabling them to do work which might deliver more value for the organization. So that, in a nutshell, is what the platform does. Let's stop the sharing and we'll get the presentation back up. Happy to answer questions, at the end. But for now, I'm going to hand to Babak and let him take you through the work that Statistics New Zealand have been doing as a real example of applying the platform. Babak.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Dave, for the intro. Thanks, Neil, for the overview. And hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks for your time. So my name is Babak. I work as the product owner for the field operation in the Census Department in Statistics New Zealand, and our team is responsible for the delivery of the field operation during census. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share an application of the platform to the application that Neil just introduced in a real context, and show you how we've used it for our, to automate our onboarding and offboarding solution for our field staff for the census operation. I will have 6 slides that I will walk you through the experience by giving some information about, Statistics New Zealand, what we do and why we do it, and then draw the picture about how the project started and a bit of context of our journey, and then I will add a framework to our conversation to highlight the benefits we got from using LINQ, and then reflecting back on some learnings and recommendations. Can we go to the next slide, Nathan? So what don't want to focus much on our organization in terms of in this presentation, because I think the experience is applicable to any organization or any operation going through a change process and have to make decision quickly and based on evidence, but a little bit of background would be, I think, necessary. In New Zealand, Census is one of the departments in Statistics New Zealand, which is a public service department responsible for the collection of statistics related to economy, population, and society of New Zealand. Census department is particularly responsible to run census program every 5 years in a project model, and partner with different organizations for this purpose to deliver a successful result. As you know, census provides the count of population and connects us to geographical location, private and non-private dwellings. This presentation or this talk is particularly focused on the project we've been doing with our digital business services, who provides the solution for technology and our development work for our onboarding, offboarding process. But I think it is important to understand why we are looking at this case as a special case, or what is interesting about this for investigation. There are multiple factors that separate census department from other part of the organization. As I said, we run based on project concept model, means we are not dealing with BAU processes as other departments and teams. We have a changing environment, and our organization and our strategies have to adapt and with these environmental factors and address them in an efficient and effective way. There are multiple factors that separate census department, especially the onboarding, offboarding parts from other parts. I have to highlight a couple of points, focusing on census department use an external vendor to employ around 4,000 people in a short time frame. These people are employed in a full-time or part-time base, and since they're not employed by Stats New Zealand, they don't need access to our corporate HR system. The corporate onboarding process follows rather different objectives to what census department is looking at. They are mainly focused on creating a pleasant experience for the employee, and also they're not constrained by time. On the other hand, onboarding for census is very much about fast turnarounds and enablement as quickly as possible. The number of employees are quite different, and from our BAU process, dealing with 4,000 employees in a short time frame of 3 to 4 months for the field operation is out of the reach for our corporate environments to deliver. So we're also talking about a very complex and complicated process that connects various actors and stakeholders which are responsible or for the different stages of the process and with different priorities. Actors like the recruiter vendors who employ our staff, Ministry of Justice for criminal conviction directors when we employ people, training teams to train employees according to their role in the field, and plus health and safety requirements, logistic vendor who provides the equipment to our field staff, and our operational support team who support these employees during operation. The process eventually has to create the identities for these employees in our corporate system and make sure they have appropriate equipment and devices and have access to necessary corporate platforms such as Salesforce, our health and safety reporting, and learning management system. The onboarding platform also acts as a source of truth for our employees' data. That means any changes should flow to other systems and update all other systems along the way. Next slide. What I'm doing here is I would like to talk about the project that we have been doing and put the details that I just mentioned in a bit of a context and show how the experience may apply to maybe applicable to our more general situations like large scale operation in other sectors, for example, emergency response and recovery for utility sector, which can be quite similar. So we started the project in August, September last year, 2022, when the conversation about 2023 census picked up. It is important to mention that the unsuccessful experience from 2018, particularly in the onboarding of forwarding space, highlighted the need for this conversation to address the onboarding of forwarding solution as a critical piece of work for the delivery of a successful census. This need brought a group of people from corporate and census to discuss onboarding of forwarding in a broader perspective and identify the gaps for improvement. During this conversation, Neil got involved to help articulating the needs and using the LINQ platform to sort of facilitate the conversation between different stakeholders. I would like to highlight some of the timelines that we were facing at the time when we started. So we were targeting a test in March 2021, which is now done and dusted. We're looking forward for our direct rehearsal next year, which means we are onboarding people. We should start having all of our system in place by the end of this year. And census proper will take place in 2023, which means we will onboarding people late 2022. Looking at timelines, you will get a sense of where we were when we started and the pressure we have for the delivery of an MVP for our test. Beside this time pressure, we had limited resource available for us. We had, an architect started with us in our DBS team, in our digital business services team, who was very new to it, didn't have experience with census. 2 new starters as SMEs in our census department, which made it difficult for to basically articulate the needs. We were also expecting variation for solutions. So what we were going to use for the test had a lot of manual and workaround processes because we were sure we are not going to provide the full solution for the test for 2021, and so we had to basically plan and think about the work that we need to do for those workaround processes. So this is where LINQ really helped us to facilitate the conversation among stakeholders. It gives us a tool where we could talk on visual presentation with a right level of details and discuss it with various stakeholders. It helped us to create a common language and eventually common understanding of the process, and we could make decisions based on and define our objective based on evidence and some numbers that we got from analytics. It was also interesting to see how this platform was understandable both for our business side and our basically technical team who were providing the solution for us in our digital business services. And where I would like to share some of the examples of the work that we've been doing. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So as you can see, and also LINQ talked about it, this is very in this slide. You can see it's part of the diagram. It's a big sketch, so I've selected part of the diagram to share with you. So working on this diagram initiated very productive conversation among various groups and customers in our in the organization, and helped us to define the end-to-end process by 4 elements of action, information, people, and systems. Using this approach gave us the opportunity to identify responsible people and actions they needed to take in the process, what had to be automated, what information was required for the end-to-end process, and also what information should be used for reporting and when in the process. Platform also provided some analytics, as I mentioned, where we could see the cost or time of an action or cost or time of an automation process. These details would provide helpful information for decision makers to decide whether they need to automate a process or a sub-process or not, how much it may cost, and what added value we will get out of that automation if we are leaving it as a manual process, what we need to do or what resources we need to think about. Although I have to point out that the details required for these analytics were not always available and easy to capture, so it needed extra and further planning to basically achieve these objectives. Next slide, I would like to basically add a framework to our conversation and see how this experience and usage of LINQ enable us to basically drive a successful change in a short time frame. You may have come across Kotter's change management model. It defines 8 stages for a successful change management plan that I briefly discussed here. It starts by creating a sense of urgency, which means developing the need for change, and this may help your organization spark the initial motivation to get things going, and by identifying potential threats, developing scenarios, and showing what could happen in the future, and also examining some opportunities that might be available. It continues by building partnership, convincing people that change is necessary, which take a strong leadership and visible support from key people in the organization, and then it moves on to form a strategic vision and initiative. Because when you first start thinking about the change, there will be probably many great ideas and solutions floating around, and linking those concepts to an overall vision that people can sort of grasp easily and remember is an important stage to make the change, to happen. And then it's about communicating that vision. You should be able to really communicate the vision with different audience group on a day-to-day basis. And then all of these will enable actions, which means put in place a structure for change and continually checking for barriers in the process. This will give you hopefully a short-term win, and that motivates people to keep going and sort of enable further change along the way, and finally institutionalizing that change and make it as robust as possible. putting the our adding this context, and next slide if that's Neil presses. Thanks. So if I'm going to add this framework to our experience, so it may give us a better understanding about the experience and show how LINQ has helped us in some of the stages of this process. So for us, the urgency of it was already there. The experience from 2018 has proved that we need to sort of pay special attention to this offboarding, onboarding process. That sense of urgency brought about the support at leadership team to bring together a group of people, and conversation started at our corporate level to sort of improve our onboarding, offboarding process and create a better experience for our employees coming on board. Different teams from Census and our corporate HR came together to discuss options, and that provided the partnership we needed, starting with LINQ in separate group, trying to address the requirements, enabled us to find a vision for Census on our corporate side. And LINQ also gave us a very good platform, and that's very important, to visually create a common language among stakeholders, especially between business users and our technical team. It enabled us to communicate our objectives and define where we were going with the project with a broader audience group. The common language and clearer requirements enable us to take some actions and have more and enable us to create more tangible result. It removed the resistance from different groups that were involved in the project, particularly our DBS team, who were complaining about unclear requirements and things like that, to basically initiate the project. All of the above enabled us actually to have a quick win for the test, so we could basically deliver a successful MVP for our test in a short time frame, and that enabled us to sort of test the solution in a real-time action and find the gaps and plan for the next stage going forward and build up on what we have already in place, and hopefully we can have a successful result going forward for the next stages of the development. We are continuing to work with LINQ for our further stage. Reflecting back, if I can go to next slide, please. Yeah. So reflecting back to what we have been doing, I would like to point out some of our learnings. Facilitating workshop and conversation were very important to capture our requirements and successfully achieve some of the stages explained in the model. Finding the right stakeholder and customers, asking the right questions and capturing the requirements in an appropriate way were all critical for the success. I think along this, we realize we need some people in our organization to basically work with the platform effectively, so they can drive this conversation and progress to work in smaller groups and in the immediate team among immediate team members. And I can emphasize more the importance of the continuous delivery and having tangible results along the way. It was very, very important, and it helped us quite a lot to maintain our motivation and also reevaluate the assumptions we have had along the way to basically build up on what we've been achieving and going forward, looking for, basically replanning and making it more precise and accurate to achieve those objectives. So that was the experience, I think, that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully that that was helpful.
Thank you, Babak. Jennifer, hey, is it okay if we go over about 5 or 8 minutes, Ashley? Oh, you're on mute.
It's pretty tight.
Okay. All right.
I can go
we'll
fast.
Just go.
Okay. I can do the abbreviated version, no problem. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Ashley, Dave, everybody. My name is Jennifer Petit. I'm here in lovely Colorado, surrounded by mountains and some blue sky. So things are looking up. I do work for WOW. If you live in the U.S. and you live in any of like Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, even some areas in the South, like Pinellas, Florida, you might have heard of us. We are the sixth largest cable operator in the U.S. 19 markets, about 800,000 customers, and going north, thank goodness. So growing. We are a combination of 6 companies, and I think that's where this is most important for you all to understand, is that when we think about LINQ and what we use it for, the complexity there is significant. If you look at our map there, we're an acquisition-oriented company. We have a lot of old properties from Ameritech, Knology, other small operators in Maryland and some others. So when you think about what's going on for us as a cable operator or as an internet provider, there's a lot of underlying complexity from these legacy systems. And there's varied processes across those. It's fair to say some of these companies still operate like their own entities, although we're working on integration. So when I looked at LINQ and what we were trying to do, the use case that we were solving for was, at the time, and still today, we're trying to grow our hosted VoIP product. It's a very sticky product for our commercial customers, which is awesome. That revenue stays with us, and once we're integrated, it's a very nice way for us to count on that long-term relationship with those customers. The challenge is, in order to grow hosted VoIP, we really have a lot of manual processes. And the vice president of our NOC reached out one day and said, I would love to see if you can help us model our processes, because I feel like there's some opportunity there to do things differently. Maybe it's integrating some systems, maybe it's consolidating some roles, but I can't tell, and I can't make the case for change to my leadership, although they're expecting me to scale my ability to support an increased number of hosted VoIP customers. So you can see the nuance there. It's like, hey, the business is growing, we have this really great product, we want to sell more of it, but we really can't scale based on our current environment. So if you could go to the next slide, Dave. What we started doing is looking at understanding how hosted VoIP is delivered all the way from the time of order to the time of installation and support. And so we were trying to really dig in and understand who are the people, the artifacts of information, the systems used, et cetera, everything that's the ingredients of LINQ, right? Those 4 boxes. And so we took opportunity to do the interviewing process, which Babak referred to. That is the key. And Neil showed you a really great example of how super simple it is to model your processes. It's a drag and drop scenario. And what's really compelling and was important for us is the attribute information. Neil alluded to it, the value of something, the cost of something. What struck me as unique was that we could actually quantify our process, going way beyond just, black and white, sort of lucid chart, one-dimensional model. LINQ allows you to say, well, here, I've created this canvas of how things work. Now let me understand what's really happening here. Let me quantify the systems. Let me quantify the people, the cost, the time. So we did that. We mapped the end-to-end flow of the hosted VoIP product. We started using those wonderful dashboards that you saw, where you can actually say, thank you. You can say, okay, how many systems do I have? This one was eye-opening. And I love it, Ashley, because it actually tells me, oh my gosh, I have huge opportunity to automate. Right now I have 37 unique systems. Only 4 of those systems are talking to each other. What if we moved away from Excel, Access, desktop applications, little spreadsheets on our personal computers, to perhaps creating APIs between common systems like Salesforce and like our provisioning system? What if, right? And that's the goal that I thought was so interesting, is we played with a lot of what if scenarios. So we took our current state. It was rather clunky, probably is the best way to say it. And we said, what if we started doing a couple of things, integrating some APIs, maybe changing our processes, and I'll cut to the chase, also collapsing roles. So there's a human element, a system element, a process element. And to, kind of give you some context, in this short time frame, what we really said is we've got a couple options here. Dave, thanks for keeping up with me. Modeling the future state option, which included a lot of just quick wins, like could we just integrate some systems or change some roles. Future state option 2, which is let's invest a little more, let's do some more system integration, maybe let's get some new systems and see if those can help. But in all cases, we didn't spend a penny until we looked at it and we could evaluate through the lens of true cost of change, right? Impact of change. And that's where these comparison dashboards are the money to me, because I can literally say, okay, if I integrate Salesforce with our provisioning system, what happens, right? How many people are now involved in the process? How much faster can information flow? How much more can I do with those bodies, if you will, if they're not busily trying to do things in email and all these other, archaic ways of doing business? So I'll tell you what happened, right? This is all theoretical until something actually happens. What we wound up doing in the short term was we introduced a role collapsing. It also revealed some cultural nuances we weren't aware of. There was 2 teams who were from those different systems, okay, different companies, who were feeling territorial about their roles because they did the same thing. We said, well, okay, let's just say you're still both important, but now you're going to do this customer advocate role, and we're going to shift the other ones over to a customer care role. So instead of having 2 customer care agents and 2 customer advocate agents, we instead combined those. We did some knowledge sharing, and we made those folks feel more valuable, and we actually took a lot of the inertia out of having duplicate roles. The second thing we did is we implemented an order checklist. It became very clear that a lot of the inertia and the manual systems or the manual lift was because we just weren't getting good order information. So those were clear to us in the LINQ tool, because we said, why is all this rework happening? Why are we going back for the customer phone number? Why are we going back for this? Why don't we just get all that data up front? So that was a game changer for us. We're still working on API integrations. It's a heavier lift there with our IT teams, but it's fair to say that just doing those couple of things up front helped us get more momentum, take out the noise. And today we're selling hosted VoIP like crazy. We'd still love to sell more and do more automation, but that's a journey of transformation. But LINQ is helping us make the business case for that. We feel like we can say, hey, if you give us $2 million, we can integrate these APIs and you can take 6 days out of your process. That sounds pretty good. So Ashley, I know you're at time and I wanted to be respectful of that. It was a quick run through, but I'm happy to feature anything else that might be of interest in terms of our experience at WOW with, process modeling and using LINQ.
Thank you. Well, we did have a question. Patrick from Excel Energy is asking, for future state modeling, how close is our savings estimates compared to actuals?
Oh, great question. Ours was really close, to be honest. I mean, when you looked at the cost of a person doing a job for a certain number of hours, that was a very finite number. And when we took that cost and we said that person's no longer doing it or they're doing it in less time, it was very accurate. I think that's what created the credibility with our leadership, is they said, I see that you're not just throwing numbers out there and hoping for the best. They're real. So it depends on how good your modeling is and how much information you can get. Some of that information is sensitive. Salary information can be a little delicate. So it kind of just depends on how good your information is, but I would say it was pretty accurate.
Cool. Anybody have any more questions? I would say throw it into the chat. Actually, we do need to wrap up. Any last words, Dave, you want to?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, if you guys, usually it's a lot to pack into an hour. So if, any questions pop up after, you're sitting in the next presentation, feel free to reach out to me. Our contact info will be in here. And also the Greencastle guys with DocuVault are going to be talking about how they've used LINQ as well. So encourage you to watch that. You'll see a little bit more, another example of how it's being used. So thanks, everybody. Awesome. Jennifer, that was really good. I don't know how you did that in like 9 minutes, but you did a really good job.
It was wicked fast.
Cut to the chase.
Love it.
Good story to tell. I like the highlights.
It was awesome, all of you. Just terrific. Thank you so much for sharing this really valuable presentation and just illustrating it so well. I've seen it a few times. That was probably the best. Thank you. And then we're going to hop into a stretch break, and we're going to hear from Amy Amerson from Entergy at 2:20. So join us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Cheers.